What's up, everyone? It's the OG Fit Kid here, Tom Montalto, and joining me today for a special fans perspective, we have Mike Belcaster of the Pyramid Wrestling Podcast. What's up, Mike? How's it
Oh,
going?
going good, man. Just getting out of that 4th of July vibe, kind of slinking into the 5th,
Yeah, I know. It's like summer has officially begun now. Hope everybody had a
Yeah.
great 4th of July weekend and you're ready to take on the summer big plans. And I guess you're excited. You have some AEW coming to you at the end of the summer, huh?
Yeah, man. I'm super pumped. I'm gonna do my damnedest to get tickets for sure because I'm super excited. They're doing 3 nights here too, which is great. It's almost a whole week of celebration and fun. Live wrestling's back. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so jealous. I'm having a huge party at my house that weekend, so there's no
Oh.
chance of me getting away. But we're here to talk about WWE today. We're here to talk about a guy like you who loved WWE and you
Yeah.
kind of fell out of love with it. So when did you fall out of love with it? Tell us a little bit.
Oh man, I mean, we'll start off as I've been a fan my entire life. It's probably my dad took me to my first wrestling show in 1988. I was born in 1987, so and just cool stuff. I still have the ticket stub, and
Do you really? That's friggin' awesome.
No, super cool. So I've always been like a huge fan of wrestling in general. And WWF was there back in the day, so it was just like a big thing. And growing up with it, and it was so great. We got the Attitude Era. I got the tail end of the Golden Era, and all the fun stuff going on. And like, yeah, man, probably I'd say like around like 2016, 17. Like I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. My dad just passed away. My brother passed away. And like me and my dad were wrestling buddies, like full and through. Like every show that came here, we would be at. We would watch it every week together, and it's just kind of like I don't know. The product was changing at the time, and life was changing so much at the time. So it was like, like I don't know if I'm necessarily as big in love with this as I once was, and like I still watched it, and occasionally I still do today, and like it just doesn't got the capture that it once had back in the day. Like, when you're growing up, how it hooks you the way it hooks you, and like you fall in love with the magic of the storylines being told and just all this cool stuff that they do. Like, it's awesome when it clicks. And it just hasn't clicked like that in a long time. So I miss that a lot, man.
I mean, it's so true. I mean, I feel the same way. Like I still watch every week, but there's been a disconnect for so long now. Back for when Vince and them came out and with Triple H and Stephanie, and they said, "Oh, we hear you, and we're going to give you what you want," and they never did any such thing, unfortunately. But it's been a rough time for WWE. Like I said, so as a fan, like we know you watch AEW now. You're a big AEW fan, as am I. But so what would WWE need to do to get you back?
I don't know, man. They've tried there's been a lot of cool stuff. Like I'll tune it. Like I said, I watch the big shows, as much as I can. Like I love seeing like the Brock Lesnar come out and do stuff. Like I just like seeing the big talent there. And I don't know necessarily what they would have to do to get me back, because I'm not like completely away from it, but it's just that it's not as compelling as it once was for me. And like I'll watch indies, I watch AEW, New Japan, like you name it. I'm all over the place still with it, but it's just, yeah, man, just WWE is just like it's almost became so overproduced. So like it would need for them, it would need for them to dial back on some of their ballpark like big game thing and just kind of make it more intimate again. And not so many camera cuts, not so much dialogue that sounds like it's not coming from the talent on the roster. Like I like realism. Like I love when like somebody from AEW goes out there and they cut a hell of a promo and you believe it, and you're like that like John Moxley doesn't necessarily hate Kenny Omega in real life, but you believe it when you're watching it on screen. You're like, yeah, like come on, give me more, like you feed for it. I love that about wrestling, the organic like crazy tension that happens. That's where it's it catches me. So I wish WWE would bring back more of that. Like when Austin was around, man. Like he came out, everything was organic. It was straight to the wall. Like everything he would say you would fall in love with, you would believe, and then you get these big awesome crowds from it. And like I feel like the not just the roster has been kind of like washed over with this production and stuff, but I also feel like the fans as well, like you don't see, you know, 20,000 people screaming their lungs off anymore. And like, it just kind of sucks. It takes away from it all. It's a shame.
I mean, what you said with overproducing is exactly something I've been saying for a long time. I hate their lighting. It's
Yeah.
just too lit up. Like my favorite thing WWE's done in a while was the Women's Evolution pay-per-view because they went to the old school dark lighting.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
watched
it was
that
just
one.
a spotlight on the ring, and it just felt like it was a special event.
Yeah. And it's
Where
like,
where every other event they show has the same exact light, and it's so bright and so lit now.
yeah.
It takes away, and the camera work, like they try to
Ugh.
do way too much with the camera work. When you have a guy pounding in somebody's head and they're zooming in and out as it's happening, it's like, what the hell? Like it makes you dizzy watching it. It's not
Yeah.
enjoyable.
No, Edge
So
was just fighting one of the Usos, right? It was
yeah.
like last week or something, and he was doing the punches on the ground, and like it was left, right, left, but the camera was going all over the place, and it was like I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on in the ring, and like it's almost too distracting to keep up with what's going on. It's
Dude,
crazy.
I don't know who thinks that's a good idea. It's not enjoyable to watch.
No, it's
Like no
it's
matter
it's
what's
a
going on the
shame.
screen. It
Yeah,
really
no,
is. Like it's so funny though, because you see a guy like Edge step back into the ring in WWE, and you instantly feel something different when you see him there. Like there's a
yeah,
star, like no matter who else is there, like there's a star power when Edge is there that you don't really get from anybody else on the roster right now.
absolutely.
Like, and you can feel like, hey, this is what's missing here. Like, they have a lot of entertaining guys. Their roster is very, very talented as far as wrestling's
Yeah,
going. But even Roman Reigns, like you don't stop like when you see an Edge on the screen, or even if Cena comes back, they bring
yeah.
something that's lacking in today's WWE.
Absolutely. And
So
it's like a shame. Like Roman Reigns comes out and like he is doing some of the best work he's ever done, nowadays, but it's just it's still lacking so much, like if Roman Reigns was coming out and giving like these dark, heavy promos back in the day, and he had somebody to combat with that was huge, like a Batista or, even if Randy Orton, somebody big, just put them in together in a program, I think it would sell it so much better. And that's like there's another thing. It's a lack of really good star power in WWE right now, and it's just a shame, man.
it really is a shame, especially like for one, I know I've said this 100 times. I was so looking forward to Aleister Black coming back, and
Yeah,
he was one of the few people I really enjoyed there. I thought he had what it took, and then they just let him go. So it's like, what are you doing? Like this
yeah,
guy had the presence, like he's going to tell an interesting story. He was great in the ring. He had something that nobody else on a roster really had,
yeah,
and then they
absolutely.
just let him go. So
No,
it's
like
just
the
yeah,
last big thing that I was watching that I remember that I was like so like, okay, this is gonna be cool. And like when Samoa Joe and Brock were doing their program together, like Samoa Joe was, spitting fire off the microphone, and like they worked so well together. It looked like a big match. It felt like a big match. I just wish there was more that came from it. And that's another thing too, is like they put so much fuel into the fire, but then they put it out too quick. So you'll get like this huge, beautiful buildup for like a month. And then after they do like one match, if it's not going the way they don't want it to go, then it's just like put it out. Like let's move on to the Bella Twins again. Like come on,
yeah,
so
exactly.
it's a shame, man.
It really is a shame because there's some stuff that could work and it just doesn't. And again, I don't feel like it's any of the talent's fault.
No,
It's
absolutely not.
all the old school producers that they had, they've let go and they've moved on to AEW. And to me, you could see
Yeah,
in the AEW product the difference in the quality of the matches and the difference in everything, the promos. It's really something special what AEW has going on now because you every not every single week, but more times than not, when an episode ends of Dynamite, it's like, oh, I can't wait to see the next week.
yeah, and you're
They leave
anticipating
you.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
they build to that magic, and then like they'll cut it off at the perfect time. So you're like, man, like is Wednesday here yet? Like I want more Dynamite. I hope there's a pay-per-view this weekend, and then I hope that things build with Rampage and the rest of it. Like I feel like AEW is going to become very, very full in the next couple months, especially with all the new programming, new talent that they're going to be signing, and whatever case happens. Yeah, with pay-per-views back on the road. I'm excited for Wednesday night because we're going to be in a new arena. We got a new crowd,
Yeah.
fresh faces, people that care. It's gonna
Yeah.
it had so much beauty to it all, man.
It really does. I'm so looking forward to seeing fans again. After Double or Nothing, I tapped
Oh,
out. Like the Thunderdome, I felt more of a disconnect than ever. Like,
yeah,
for going from nothing to the Thunderdome, it's like, oh, okay, this is wrestling. But then you see the real fans again, and it's like, no, I need real
yeah.
fans. I don't need piped in noise. I need to see like organic reactions. And
Yeah, no, and like Jungle Boy when he came out at Double or Nothing, and like the crowd was, singing the music, putting their hands up, like it was beautiful, man. Like that, I think we've all been missing that for this last 16
oh,
months.
or what about the reaction Eddie Kingston got? Like that
Yeah,
was awesome to see. Like
absolutely.
to see these guys that have been wrestling in front of small amounts, to see who's really over and stuff like that, it's just such an awesome feeling. And I think the WWE will only benefit by having fans back. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not going to hurt, but the Thunderdome, like I said, they did what they had to do during a difficult time. I love the fact they didn't mimic exactly what AEW was doing by just putting a small amount of fans in,
yeah,
because then it's kind of like, okay, you're doing the same thing they did, so they did their own take on it. But like, we need live fans, land.
yeah,
It's just taken away from the product. The ratings have dropped during this time. You know,
absolutely.
you're not getting the organic responses to people. Again, as I've said before, Vince McMahon is controlling the narrative. He's getting to see who he wants booed and cheered because he's piping it in.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
he's the maestro. He's sitting there playing the symphony, and like he gets to judge it all. And it's weird. The Thunderdome was an awesome concept. I thought it was cool when it first came out, but it totally wore its welcome like way too fast.
yeah,
And
it
like
did.
then it just started getting like, oh, okay. Because once you found out like, oh, it's kind of like the video game noise being piped into the crowd. It's not really like the people on the camera. Like, and again, it would be
Right.
hard to put 1,000 people that are on a screen, like make them speak right together,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it was crazy. And then like you start getting like these weird cheers and boos for things that like you might not necessarily think should be cheering or booed for, and then just like it makes it's like putting that mustard when you put it on the hot dog but it shoots out the water at
Yeah.
first. That's what the Thunderdome was for me.
That's so true. That's a great comparison to what it is. I like to compare it to. I've said, like, if you go back a year, say the a whole pandemic started a year earlier with the whole after Seth Rollins won the title. We never would have known the fans didn't like it. They would have just been pumping in the cheers,
Yeah,
and this whole heel turn would have never happened
yeah, no,
because
that's
they would
very
have been
true.
they would have been controlling the cheers, and they would have been thinking, okay, everybody loves this. Guess
Yeah,
what? Everybody doesn't. For all we know, come in a couple of weeks when there's a live crowd, Seth Rollins might get the biggest cheers of his life now, because what he's doing now is more entertaining. As the heel,
yeah,
it's funny. So, how are the fans going to react to Roman Reigns? Are they going to love him? Are they going to boo him? There's no
yeah.
way to tell. It's
No,
going to be fun. I look forward to seeing that. I hope, WWE has something planned for the fans returning. How shocked are you? Like the last 2 weeks on SmackDown, we see Edge return and Zelina Vega return without the crowds.
yeah, like you could have saved that for what are they going on the road in like 2 weeks, something like that? Like,
Yeah, like
man,
they have one
yeah,
more Thunderdome SmackDown, and then it's live.
man, and like how much of a bigger impact would have that been? Put out two dry, Thunderdome shows, and people be like, oh, but the guys that bought their tickets, that would have meant something to be at that show, and it's crazy. And I hope they do something special for the people there. I hope they make it a big, extravaganza for everybody, like WWE normally would. Like WrestleMania. WrestleMania was still hard to watch, like because the crowd. I can't wait for the crowds to come back in full, especially for WWE. I'll be watching those shows for sure, at least to check them out and see how it's going.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that WrestleMania show was just lacking, and they still had people there, but they did not have enough people to be in a giant football field and try to make it sound right and everything. It was messy, man.
all right. I haven't talked about this on air or anything with anybody like publicly, so I'm gonna get my opinion of WrestleMania out now since you brought it up. When WrestleMania kicked off and Vince started with the speech, it was like, all right, cool. This feels like it's a special thing. And then the card started, and I was taken out of it so fast.
Yeah.
I literally think it was probably the worst WrestleMania I've seen. I'm not even counting last year's, because last year's was a rare circumstance. But like, I literally, after the second night, like I enjoyed Sasha and Bianca. That was pretty good. The main event with Roman and Bryan was pretty good, but honestly, it just sucked the life out of me. I was like, that's 8 hours I'm never going to get back. Like,
Yeah.
I know people stick up for that WrestleMania, but I
No,
thought it was painful to watch. It was rushed. I was so looking forward to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens because they always put on great matches, and it was they were given no time. The match they had on SmackDown this week, I don't know if you saw it,
No, not
should have
yet.
been what they. You got to go watch that match. That should have
I
been the
heard good
WrestleMania
things.
match. It was an
Yeah,
amazing match. Owens did a bump through two tables,
nice.
so so it
No,
was definitely worth checking out. Like, but yeah,
if
WrestleMania was painful for me this year. I'm sorry to say it. I know some people said they enjoyed it. I think they're lying to themselves. If they enjoyed it, good for them.
yeah,
I didn't enjoy it. If they did, I hope they did. I didn't. And
no,
I've watched WWE for 40 years without a break. Like
yeah,
I've never even taken that break that some people take, even when I've disconnected from the product, like I have the last few years. I'm enjoying AEW much better. I still tune into WWE.
yeah.
So
No, it's crazy. I feel like they jumped the gun. If Mania was this week and they were going back to full crowds right after Mania, that would have been okay. We could deal with this one last bad show, and like we'll be back with Vince's big speech and everything. It felt like they were rushing it. So
oh
I
yeah.
agree with you. I wish they would have been 10 times better than it was. I hope that in the next couple months things change. I hope the product gets better because having fans there, live reactions. I hope the crowd eats them alive, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
because
100%.
that's what changes the product is when the fans aren't happy and they're being vocal. Like, give it to me. I'm all for it, man.
Hey, listen, they have a stadium show coming up in SummerSlam. They have to sell out
Yeah,
70,000 seats. So I have a feeling they have something big. I hope they have something big planned. I
yeah,
feel
and
like,
not just a Brock Lesnar. You're going to need more than a Brock Lesnar, I think, to pump people up that bunch.
yeah, like I said, I know I've said this before, but I feel like they're starting to change the booking a little bit. Looking at the Money in the Bank match is a perfect example. You had Riddle and John Morrison and Ricochet going over AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, and Randy Orton, which was totally shocking knowing WWE.
Yeah,
Um, then you go this week and it had that awesome match with Zayn and Owens on SmackDown, and it was a little more violent than what we've seen from WWE recently.
that's
So
which is good. Yeah,
yeah, no, it seems like they're getting a little bit, they're getting listening to the fans a little bit and trying to give them what they want because, it's a thing we talked about on a debate show. You have the casual viewers who are going to be happy with anything. And Vince McMahon is making his money and he doesn't really need to tap into the diehards because he's making so much money. But if he taps into the diehards, the casual fans are still going to be happy.
yeah.
So
No, it's very.
why not get the best of both worlds?
Yeah, it's very true. And like I feel like you'll make more diehard fans by selling
Exactly.
over for the diehard fans, and the more people be like, "Wow, this is great." So it just makes like you look at wrestling in a lifeline. Like we all started when we were kids, when it was the cartoony, like you're big guy versus big guy, and then it grows up to be we're in our teens, and then we get the Attitude Era, Stone Cold drinking beer, they're saying "suck it," flipping
Yeah.
people off, and then we kind of mature out of that. And then we get into this like ruthless aggression era where we're like a little older teenager in early 20s, late 20s, and you're like you're out of the angst, but you still like yeah, I got this. And now we're at this weird plateau where it's just kind of like floating,
And it's
So
the amazing thing is about it, the roster is so freaking talented. Like it's not the
yeah,
roster's fault. Like you have guys on there who could do anything.
yeah,
Like you
no,
have some amazing men on like and women, like not just men, amazing wrestlers
yeah,
that could put on
absolutely.
hell of matches. You've seen them do it. And it's kind of like the disconnect when the people come up from NXT. Like you see them put on great matches down there, and then they get up to the main roster and they kind of become PG or WWE edited,
Yeah,
and you don't get to see what Keith Lee was doing that made people fall in love with him because he's now
absolutely.
being booked to wrestle like any other big man that WWE's had, and that's boring because somewhere along the way WWE forgot how to book big men.
Yeah. Well, I think the evolution of big man changed a lot of things too. Like you got somebody like Keith Lee who's so athletic and like angelic when he does big high spots and stuff like that. Things you won't see Brock Lesnar doing, things you wouldn't
Right.
see like, Hulk Hogan or Andre doing or, the Big Show. Like Keith Lee's a beast. And like if you would book that in his favor, then I think that would tell a way better tale than they're telling already. Like if you put Keith Lee versus Brock in a big match, but you let Keith Lee be Keith Lee, I think
Right.
that would put Keith Lee over to the moon. And
That
I think it's sad that we're probably never going to see that happen.
it's so true, man. And it's so sad because that's what made Keith Lee become Keith Lee, and hopefully everything is okay with him. Nobody really knows, and we see him return to our screen sometime soon.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
nothing serious because that guy has a lot left in his tank and a lot to give to this business because you
Yep.
could tell that he loves it.
Oh yeah.
So I guess like it's we both agree WWE is overproduced. I like to say they put the emphasis on the E just a little too much,
Yeah.
and not on a W.
Yeah, no,
So,
absolutely. I feel
but
like if they just hustle a little bit more on the realism and less on the the whole overall production, like everything doesn't need to look like a movie. Like
yes,
take it back a step, give it a little grittiness, like a Shotgun Saturday Night like kind of vibe, because that's where I fell in love with it, man. Like when I used to
yeah.
watch those matches, it was like these dudes are brawling in a bar, just beating the shit out of each other, and you're just like, this is great stuff to watch. And like I miss seeing that's kind of like where AEW is like in the benefactor of it all, because they get to do that grittiness and it's live TV, anything can happen type feel without getting spoiled or without big things happening, because 30 million people need to hear about it before it happens on TV. So I hope WWE just kind of works out in a little bit of better way.
And it's different too because what I love about AEW is guys aren't being handed scripts.
Yeah.
Wrestlers, you fall in love with a wrestler when they develop their character organically.
Yep.
They're not being told who they are and what they have to do. You're more of an actor that way.
Yeah.
And imagine if Stone Cold was handed a script and he didn't get
Oh,
to cut that 316 promo. We'd never have the whole Austin era. You
yeah.
never have what The Rock did. And I don't understand. Like Vince knows that was probably the most profitable time for his company, but he's went away from it. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Like you're a
Yeah.
businessman. You want things to be good. Why don't you give to people what they want? But AEW, we see guys cutting their own promos, and it's a major difference. As
Absolutely.
a wrestler, and I talked about this about Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper was Roddy Piper. He was method when he was out there. He was believing that's who he was, and that's what he said. And you didn't see the other side of Roddy Piper like you see people now going on social media. And that's one of
Yeah.
the big things about MJF. You don't see MJF, when he's on TV, he's MJF. But when you see him on social media, he's MJF.
Maybe even more so than he is on TV.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes it awesome because it makes it believable. It's not
Yeah.
that hey, I have to read a script. Like if you let guys in WWE, like WrestleMania, go back to WrestleMania, one of the better parts was seeing these guys getting to have to go cut promos, not being handed a script.
Yeah.
You felt a little bit of a different vibe from people. Like I love, I'm not a Braun Strowman fan. If you listen to the debates, you could see our debate about Braun Strowman when they were talking about hopefully he goes to AEW, and I'm like, I don't want to see that because I was just so bored of him and a choo-choo train. But his promo at WrestleMania, like his personality was coming through a little more, and you
Yeah.
could see like he was shaking, he was frustrated, he almost cursed a few times. That was believable.
Absolutely.
Like
That's
was
great stuff. And I love when little glimpses like that happen in WWE, it makes WWE such a better product. And I
and
wish they just
what
keep
is
going with it.
what does WWE do? They go and edit out those promos
Oh
from
yeah.
the replay.
No, that's the shame, is because they're like, whatever they do, they want it to be perfect on the replays and stuff. I hate that they do that. Like if somebody drops an F-bomb, let it go. Like let it just stay there. Like you don't have to make younger audiences rewatch things. That's like, I don't know any kid that's gonna be like, I'm rewatching, all the manias tonight. Like sometimes it might happen, but like leave that organic stuff that happened, especially throughout the years, because it's like editing, Bambi. Like we didn't shoot Bambi in the movie. Like it's okay,
Yeah.
everything's all good, but then where's the plot? Where's the movie?
Yeah.
Like them editing out all their stuff is only hurting the business for the, like in the history of the business. I know a lot of people were mad that they took Piper out of the WrestleMania where he had the half black face
Yeah.
but the promo from that was such an awesome heartthrob.
Was.
Like you were like, wow, like edge of your seat kind of stuff. You don't see that anymore, and like it's such a shame that they're taking that away from us.
But
and
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
has there ever been a better guy on a mic than Roddy Piper?
not many, if that's for sure.
Yeah, like giving Roddy Piper that mic, and then did you watch his A&E documentary?
No, not yet. I got to catch up on the
Ah,
documentaries. I heard
so
those are
good.
so good, except for the
It,
Macho Man. I heard the Macho Man one was a little off, but Piper one, man, I love
The
the
Piper
Piper.
one was amazing because they actually showed like he had notebooks of things like you'd think everything he said was off the cuff, but he had notebooks and notebooks of stuff of little
That's great.
ideas he would have, and it's like, wow, man, this was really a creative man, and
He's
you
a
know,
professional. You know, there's not many
yeah,
people that do that in depth work to become their character.
uh,
I mean, I've seen a lot of people, you know, in locker rooms. I used to work at an indie fed for a while. Like you could really see who puts forward like every little bit in detail into it and who doesn't. And like when you see that, you could that's where people are like, he's got it. You know, he's got that it factor because you see them taking their work so seriously. Like I was used to do ring announcing. I would approach every talent, be like, where do you want to be come from? What's your weight? What's your name? Like, do you want anything silly to happen? Like, you know, just feed me what you want out of this, and like we can make it a bigger thing, you know. And like that's that Piper was a definition of that, man.
yeah. I still go back and just watch old Piper's pits and old Piper
Oh,
promos. I
so
could
good.
watch him all day long. Him and Macho Man, my two favorite, and
Yeah.
I always consider myself lucky to grow up in an era where I got to see both of them.
Yeah, no,
You know,
same likewise, man. I mean, I caught the tail end of both their careers, but it was a long tail end, and it was like
yeah.
I got like 15 years with each of them. It was good stuff. It was beautiful, and like even Piper in his older, you know, part of his career where he wasn't wrestling so much and would just come out and be a stick piece. Amazing, killed it every time he was out in the ring. I
What
look at
about
the Jericho match with Piper, you know, Ricky Steamboat, man. Like you seen
yeah?
Steamboat like click when he got into that ring. Wow.
That
Like
was Ricky
he
Steamboat. He
yeah,
that's
it was
crazy.
crazy. And it was so good, man.
Yeah. But if you think back even to the Piper's Pit when he came on and he smacked Cena,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
he
dude,
just
it was
brought an
so good.
intensity.
Yeah, and like believability, you know, like that's when you get off the cuff and you know, your anger is organic in the ring, and you're gonna yell at somebody and crack like that makes the product so much better. It's like that's what I became a wrestling fan for.
Exactly. And then you hear all these years later, it was like, okay, we learned so much about wrestling now because you're allowed to tap into behind the scenes and have all these documentaries. But then you find out Roddy Piper really hated Mr. T back in the day.
Yeah,
And
no,
he told Vince McMahon, I
crazy.
am not losing to him at WrestleMania. There is no way I am laying down, which led to the finish we got with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff turning good. But and eventually it was only right before Piper's death, him and Mr. T actually developed a friendship and started talking to each other.
Yeah,
He
that's
he
crazy,
honestly felt Mr. T did not belong in the wrestling business.
man.
So,
What
which
a
is
wonderful
crazy.
thing that it was, though, because it made the whole you know storyline so much more thick
Yep.
and filled.
Yep.
Like think about his hair; it had volume. It was boofy. You know, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy,
mean,
man.
I said it before, like, and I actually said this to Roddy Piper's daughter on the Turnbuckle sessions. I said, without Roddy Piper, Hulkamania doesn't run as wild as it did because to build up every hero, you need that villain. You need
Yep.
that hated man. And what is a superhero if he doesn't have that villain to go after? And nobody could have been Roddy Piper back then.
No, no.
You know?
Listen, they sold me on WCW when Hogan and Piper did that cage match at Halloween Havoc, and like
Yeah.
you know, still fuzzy, still like it was years ago, but it made the Piper Hogan feud travel onto their territory, and it was so great, and like it was just this you know beautiful programming by both parts. Like they really nailed it. Piper was just the king. You know, he did the best like that he did everything he did.
And then he comes back. They come back to WWE, and it picks up there again at WrestleMania when McMahon fought Hogan.
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
no.
there's Piper again. It's just one of those things. It's so funny. Like I said, I always said, whatever you grow up watching as a kid is usually your favorite era.
Yeah,
I grew up in the 80s, so I love the golden era, and I could go back and watch that. But I could also go back and watch the Attitude Era. Anytime I could go
absolutely.
back and watch anything. But, as an adult, we'll close it out with this. You don't get that same feeling you did as a kid a lot of the times. It takes a lot more to get you to pop.
Yeah,
And I find myself popping a little more at AEW now. Like I
yeah,
like to say that the only two things I think I've popped out in WWE for the last 10 years literally was when the Hardys returned at WrestleMania. Even though you heard all the rumors, when their music hit, I still jumped off my couch in
yeah.
excitement.
It
You
was a
know,
beautiful moment. Yeah.
and then the only other thing the WWE has even done to end their show that shocked the shit out of me in recent memory was Roman Reigns when they cut away from him and there is Paul Heyman sitting next to him.
Yeah. Which was great. Like, nobody expected that, So
No, see that, and they don't give us those moments anymore,
no.
and that's what they have to start doing.
Yeah,
That
no, I think that's the thing AEW does really well too, is they really hide their big stuff. Like even when Andrade came out, I wasn't expecting him that night. We all knew he was kind of going that way,
yeah,
and but when he came out, it was like, oh shit, like this is actually happening right now. Like cool, like let's deep dive into this. Like I feel like AEW's been doing really good at keeping that like mythical spot away from everybody, so everybody sees it. They're like, oh, like anything could happen again. I feel like that's a big deal.
yeah,
WWE, let's see, the last 10 years, things maybe Punk, the pipe bomb was beautiful.
that was
Uh
beautiful.
Punk's hatred towards WWE was like my best feud in the last 10 years. Like, yeah. Like even after he was done, the podcast that came out with Colt Cabana, like you
Yeah,
got so much. That was like a holy shit moment. Like those, but it was they're partially on WWE. Like it was a big deal. Undertaker losing the streak, few things.
that shock. Like I know Sneed's gonna make fun of me. I was never the biggest Undertaker fan. I always respected him, but as a fan, I wasn't the biggest fan, but I always appreciated his work and I watched it. But I sat there in amazement when Brock beat him. Like literally, my jaw was open, and again, I didn't think the streak should have ended.
Yeah, no, it's it was probably not the right time to do it. I think they did it in the best way they could have. Because look, I mean, we're still talking about it. How many years ago was it?
Yeah,
Uh, I had a WrestleMania party here. I had like 15 people at my house. We were all eating wings, and like the Undertaker match almost turned into the piss break because everybody's like, he's not going to lose, like whatever. And then like I was sitting there and I was talking to one of my friends, and I just looked, and they were like, it's done. Brock won, and like everybody was like, "Holy shit!" And like that I think that might have been one of the last like big moments that they're going to have for a while, at least. To that, like that was a match, a moment. What 25 years in the making?
it's
Crazy to think about that.
it's so true. And again, there's nobody right now that we really care enough about to give us that feeling.
Yeah,
There's
not yet
just
at least.
no, like I like what they're doing to Roman Reigns, and they're building up to be a big monster. And I love Edge, but I don't want to see Edge beat him now. I hope they continue this for a while, so that when
Yeah,
somebody does beat him, it's actually okay. Who's finally going to beat him? It's going
yeah,
to be, my idea. I've said this before on another one of these videos is build up Lashley as this big monster like they're doing, and then eventually you just make it so Reigns and Lashley have to collide to see
yeah.
which one is the more dominant monster, and then combine the titles. Because
Yeah, no, I mean Lashley is a beast of a talent. I've met him a few times. I've worked a few shows with him.
oh wow,
Dude does not stop. He'll be in the back. He's working the rips. He's just like, "What's up, guys? How's it going?" And like,
really?
oh yeah, he's always just and like off camera. He's the happiest, nicest guy in the world. I believe seeing him be that mean, angry guy on TV. So he does a hell of a job. So I love that. I hope the hell that they build up to make that something massive, like maybe a SummerSlam next year, maybe WrestleMania, and like
Yeah,
that would be, I would love to see them. Title unification would be very important right now, especially coming out of the pandemic. I don't feel like we need 20 belts for one company. Like it's almost too much. AW's got like a sweet spot right now where it's like champion, tags, women's, they got the
yeah.
TNT title. TNT title's hugely over right now. Miro's doing a
Yeah.
great job selling it. Darby did a great job with it. I
Everybody's
feel
done a
like,
great job with it. They've done an
yeah,
excellent job booking that title. It feels like what the Intercontinental title used to feel like
yeah,
back when Ricky Steamboat held it and Macho
Savage
Man held
Steamboat
it.
days, yeah, and like
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Like I feel like there's a sweet spot, and WWE definitely needs to cut down. Like there was somebody was talking about who was going to take over Ric Flair's championships, and like who's going to become the new Reign. Like how many titles do they have though? Like is it really meaningful anymore if like Cena becomes the over than Flair? It's not. Flair, it was a different game back then. Flair was running things back then, so it's not like
Dude,
it won't mean anything if whoever does it. It's not the same as Ric Flair doing it over multiple eras and decades and just being Ric Flair, man.
that's a hell of an excellent point, because I've said the same thing with like the watered down titles. Like how
Yeah,
do you have two world championships?
it
Like
doesn't
like
make any
it
sense.
does, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's watered down from when they had it the first time with Cena's reigns and all Edge's reigns, and it was just going back and forth every so often. That was, what are you doing? Like, you don't
Yeah,
need two tag team titles. You don't need it. Let's be honest, it's not two brands, it's just two separate TV shows. I,
yep,
I don't think there's a person who truly feels like Raw's a brand and SmackDown is a brand. To me, it's still, WWE if you want to have a brand, and NXT.
yep,
That's where the brand
absolutely.
separation is. And you don't need to have everybody on every show. You
No,
can have, like I said this 1,000 times before, on Monday you have Roman Reigns come out. On Friday, you have somebody come out who challenges Roman Reigns, and he doesn't need
yeah,
to be there. Then on Monday, Roman Reigns responds. The following Friday, you finally get them both together. There's a payoff. There's a way to get more people to watch. You
puts
build it up.
asses in seats, man.
Yeah, less is more, and they just give away too much right now. Like
Yeah,
back in the 80s and the early 90s, you never saw Hogan on TV. Like,
no,
he would appear in maybe a match against a jobber on Wrestling Challenge maybe once a year. But if you wanted to see Hulk Hogan, you were buying a pay-per-view, you were
yep,
buying a ticket to go to Madison Square Garden or whatever your local arena was. And they need to get back to that. And I think that's what worked for NXT for so long,
yeah,
until they extended to 2 hours. And now it's like, okay, now we need to fill 2 hours. But
yeah.
and before, the way NXT was booked was much better than the way it was booked now.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more, man. Like that's the magic of AEW. 2 hour show done.
Yeah, two
You
hour
know,
show. Not
not
everybody every week.
no, absolutely not. You'll get maybe a promo of somebody you haven't seen in a while pops up.
Right.
Because like, oh yeah, Darby still wrestles. Like I can't wait to see Darby, and then like it builds up momentum for you to want to go see it live, to want to be invested into the product. And like I feel like WWE is just built up so big now that like they got to tear down a little bit and just get back to the basics again, man.
Dude, it's so true. It's so true. Like, AEW is better at intertwining stories where some things overlap. We've finally seen WWE do that a little bit with Roman and Seth and Cesaro and some of that stuff. So hopefully they'll do some more of that. Like, now, one thing I didn't like is they kind of made it like when Seth came out and he made it like he was cool with Roman and he attacked Cesaro, kind of like he thought him and Roman was like they were still buddies, but Roman was just giving him a side eye, like, what the hell? And I'm like, okay, they could build this up. Let Seth think that they're still good and he's not, and do a slow build to a match. And now all of a sudden, Seth is begging for his match. So they kind
Yeah.
of dropped the ball there. Like, it could have been a slow build to something special, and they dropped the ball again.
Yep,
So
it's throwing gasoline into the fire, and then a storm comes and puts it right out.
it's exactly true. It's exactly true. Man, this was so much fun. Thanks for coming on. Plug
Absolutely.
the podcast. Plug your, in
Yes,
case you people haven't noticed on the bottom, all of our
Pyramid Wrestling.
Instagrams and
Oh,
Twitters.
there. Yeah, we got a wrestling action figure podcast, Pyramid Wrestling. We talk about toys. All of our new like weekly pickups. We go over old school lines like Toy Biz and Hasbro. We did a whole episode on Galoobs, which was awesome because I love Galoobs.
Well, it's funny. I fell in love with Galoobs just from that episode. I listened to it, and I had not known much about Galoobs, and now I really want to start a Galoob collection.
The best. I have like a nice maybe like 15 figures of them, and I keep them on a shelf all neat and tidy. I love them. They're mini versions of the LJNs, but with better character.
And you know how much the LJNs mean to me, because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so yeah, we roll a action figure podcast. Scott, awesome man, does so much work, kicks ass at the podcast. Love that kid to death. Yeah, man. That's it. We play with toys and we talk about it. It's fun.
And let me tell you, if you're a fan of action figures, just the way they talk about them, it's not like any other wrestling podcast. They tie it in with stories. It's really the best wrestling action figure podcast you're gonna find.
Absolutely,
Search them.
that. Thank you.
Now, search them. I'm not just saying this because I want to get on your podcast. Scott, have me on. No, but seriously, it is the best. Like, you should check them out. They do a phenomenal job. You won't don't look for another action figure podcast after you listen to them.
Appreciate the good words, man.
Thank you, man. No, it was so much fun having you. We're gonna do this again sometime. We'll
always.
do it
Anytime,
again.
man.
And it was fun having you on. Thank you. The OG Fit Kid, Twitter and Instagram. Mike Belcaster, Twitter and Instagram. And Pyramid Wrestling on Instagram, Pyramid Wrestle on Twitter. Don't forget to follow the Turnbuckle Tavern as well. Instagram, it's the Turnbuckle Tavern. On Twitter, T-Buckle Tavern. Thank you guys, and we will see you soon.